Hey, you're listening to Fat and Greasy Citizens, a podcast about Shakespeare. I'm Fat.
And I'm Greasy. Every week we do a deep dive into every act of every Shakespeare play ever written, mostly while drinking.
More specifically, I'm Chuck. I'm a former English major and now a digital editor who cares a lot about Shakespeare.
And I'm Gabe. Let's do it!
In this episode, Taming of the Shrew, Act III, in which Bianca gets wooed and Kate gets wed.
There it is.
All right.
There it is.
Open my large black book. Find Act 3.
My notes are written out on paper this time.
Sweet.
So the thing, though, is that I kind of forget what I meant by some of this. Well,
I just wrote asshole and circled it.
I wrote Shakespeare's a dick. Over and over again, like Jack Torrance.
Yeah, so for starters, it starts out with Lucentio and Hortensio trying to just argue over how to seduce Bianca. And once again, Bianca is just unnecessarily saying, like, well, listen, I'm not some schoolboy you can just whip. It's just like, just shut up.
And that's what's interesting. And again, it goes back to what we were saying before about, the argument over whether or not Shakespeare kind of knows what's up. Like, as misogynist as this play is, Bianca is actually a pretty smart woman, and she does stand up for herself. I mean, I wrote down this line, you do me double wrong to strive for that which resteth in my choice.
I was surprised on rereading it. Like, I remembered her being more resigned or easily manipulated or anything else. But the fact that she actually does seem to like suss this out pretty quickly, and she's not letting either of these guys get what they want immediately, and also that Lucentio comes to her and says basically like, hey, let's do this. Let's go around your stupid old man. And she's like, nope, that's not happening. But it's also she's mature enough to say, like, what's the last thing she says? She says, I know you not, I trust you not, take heed to hear us not, presume not, but then also despair not at the end. So she's saying, like, fuck you, go to hell. That's not a no. I'm just saying this was not the way to do it.
And I wrote, like, despite myself, I really like the fake lesson scene. I really, because I mean, that's obviously the centerpiece of this whole act, but I really like it. I think there's something cool about Lucentio. Obviously is better at it than Hortensio, but like there's this kind of like code that he's talking in using the Latin, and I thought that was very clever. And I love that, again, as you say, Bianca is not necessarily just okay. She's like, I understand what you're saying. I don't know who you are. Like this, I just met you. But she gets good vibes from him because he's clearly very charming. Like if we're gonna have the romantic lead in this play, I think Lucentio is probably it.
Yeah, and I think she's just got more confidence than I gave her credit for. At the same time, I don't know. I'm not changing my mind on Lucentio being a dirtbag or just a prick. I think would probably be the more fitting insult here. It still seems,
but of all the pricks, he's maybe
but it's also,
the
it's
more
also weird again,
prick.
like in Act 1 where he decided, like, I'm just going to tell someone I killed a guy. He jumps right to
that's a good point.
And you're gonna later on in the same act, he's like, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go find an old man, any old man, doesn't matter, just any old man, and act like my dad, and then he'll commit to the dowry. And it's just like fundamentally unnecessary. He's a rich guy, she likes him, and he's like, so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna lie to your father and you about who my dad is, and it's all to the good. It's everything that Lucentio does feels completely unnecessary.
But I do feel, I don't know why I feel so strongly about Lucentio. I want to defend him, and I think it's because there's part of me that thinks that he kind of knows what the hyper masculine environment warrants.
Yeah.
Like he understands. Like, look, the Bianca is not just going to be an easy get. Like, I'm going to have to do something, and these people are pretty cutthroat. So I'm going to start just fucking lying. Like, I'm gonna say, like, hey, I killed a guy. You know, he's upping the game almost before the game has even risen to that level. Like he's like, you know.
Yeah, no, he's like, everyone in this town is going to try and get with Bianca. So I'm just going to I'm going to do as many weird things as quickly as possible. I do also just like, from an overall structure point, that by the end of this, Gremio is given up, so we can see him mated with the widow who's never named at the end. But it seemed like, in a way, like, this arc, their arc makes sense because, like, they seem to be married by Act 5. And so, like, the arc of Lucentia wooing Bianca is, like, a good arc. The weird arc is right after this. First we learned that we go from this to Baptista and Kate just bemoaning the fact that Petruchio won't show up.
Right.
And it's, I gotta say, like, we were talking last time about, like, is there a way to pull this off? Is there a way to, since you basically like Kate, is there a way to make this work for an audience overall? And we still have to get through Act 4 and Act 5, but I just feel horrible reading this for Kate. Like, this is just so, first of all, she's treated horribly in this, but also everyone around her treats her terribly in Act 3.
Yes.
Bianca treats her like trash. Her dad treats her like trash. Petruchio, above all, treats her like trash. But, like, this seems like the first act where everyone else is just like, oh, that's what she deserves, because she does have a smart mouth.
Yeah. But, you know, somewhat bewilderingly, there's Kate does, like, when Petruchio's like, everybody have a good time, but I'm out of here. Like, Kate is one of the first to be like, no, you have to stay. If you love me, you'll stay. You know, there's like kind of a weird.
I feel like if what he's trying to do is create a portrait of gaslighting,
interesting,
or of abuse, then, like, I feel like it's semi-effective, because what he did was, she was a proud woman and he forced her into marriage. And then at some point she accepted that she was going to marry. And so she decided, well, at least I will, enjoy myself on my wedding day. And so then when he denies her that, she's like, she's already demeaned herself so much, but she's like, I actually want my wedding day. So please, I will go through the act of acting as if you actually love me and say, stay, because, like, I've already demeaned myself so much. Can I at least have a freaking wedding day? And he's like, nope, actually, my goal is to just constantly renege on things that I promised you and break you down one thing after the other until you have no hope of getting anything except through me. And no hope that my word will ever mean anything. It's just,
God, that's horrifying.
No, sorry, that's my read on it. Is that it's just like, it's like when can I get a promotion? No. Can I get a stapler? Yes. And then taking the stapler. It's just like
it's like Stockholm syndrome, like played out over,
Yeah, but just in the course of I feel like everyone abandons her in the course of the second scene in Act 3, because Baptista and Kate seem to be basically on the same page that, like, it sucks that he's late on his wedding day and it's obnoxious.
Right.
And then they seem to be on the same page that he's showing up looking like an asshole. And I don't know what there's like a wall of text that Biondello uses to describe how he shows up. I can't come up with anything in my head that comes out of it. And that's one of the things. And so it's wonderful to read. I bet it's wonderful to hear. I have no idea how you would have someone walk on stage. Like, do you have any idea how you'd have someone walk on stage, like, reflected in this wall of text?
I think there's something pretty wonderful about Biondello's horse description, like the description of the horse, because, like, he very briefly, it's like, oh yeah, Petruchio looks like shit.
Yeah,
but the horse, and then, like, and obviously there's, like, this long, metaphor of like the horse. If the horse is bad, and my favorite part of it is that there's something like, and the servant looks like the horse too.
I did like that.
The horse is bad.
Nice rule of three. And
Gremio,
Jesus.
It's like, if you think the horse is bad, where do you get to Gremio? It's pretty amazing. I was really laughing. I mean, it's like some of the descriptions involves like cancer and it's dark.
It's legitimately funny to just like endlessly berate how ugly a horse is. Just be like, no, you've never seen just an embarrassment to nature like this. But it's interesting they do that throughout this act. Everything that Petruchio does, he does off screen, and someone describes how horrific to respectable culture he is, but you don't have to see him. You could see him do all these things, but like he's coming, he's riding this stupid horse dressed like a moron with his idiot next to him. When they describe him at the wedding scene, it's described off screen, and it's just what happened overall. And these are all things that you could show happen, but you just describe to have someone walk on stage and be like, you won't believe what fucking guy did. Like,
and honestly, I think it's pretty for me, I really dislike that kind of offstage stuff, because I feel like you've already done that in this scene with the horse description, where like the whole joke of, you haven't seen him yet, but let me set this up as he looks awful and his horse is even worse, and if you get a whole load of the servant, then like this giant pile of anticipation that Biondello is building, and then of course the payoff is you see him, and it should pay off. Like, if you're directing it well, he should look like a pile of garbage coming in. But then to have him go and do all this stuff off stage after that, it's kind of like, well, you already did that. Like, that joke is kind of already done.
Yeah,
and let's see some of the behavior in live action. Because I feel like I think we've already got that payoff, so why not build on that payoff,
I don't know where I'm going with this, but it almost feels like, to a certain degree, like the way he bullshits everyone else, like the play is bullshitting us. Like when they so one of the challenging things, and this metaphor may completely fail, but like when you try and do a show like 30 Rock or something else that's supposed to be about people putting on a funny show, it's important that you never show the show, because that's impossible to say, like, here's someone who's funny and then showing them being funny, because that doesn't work. But I feel like this, in some ways, like him just constantly, or the play is like bullshitting us. They're like, he would have, oh my God, it would have blown your mind if it was there. Actually, have you seen Wet Hot American Summer?
There's a movie, and then there's a
Netflix
series, right?
Yeah.
I did see the movie, yes, but it's been a while.
There's a scene in the movie where they're just making fun of like being unable to film something, and so there's some guy who runs off screen and is supposed to save a bunch of kids from a river, and it just stays on his buddy, and he's like, "Wow, whoa, he's doing it! You got one kid, you got two kids, wow, whoa, man, jeez, wow, oh, you're a hero!" And he just walks back on stage and he's all wet, and that's essentially what they do throughout this, and it's almost like. He's Shakespeare is doing it to the audience, where it's just like, you don't get to see it. I'm just gonna so strenuously bullshit my way through this that just like you have to take my word for it. It's like when Petruchio says, like, a guy like me who's like fought in wars. Have I not fought in wars? Have I not made millions? Have I not built castles? And it's like, I don't know, but
I don't know, sir.
I paid for the show. Can I see Petruchio? Why am I being told Petruchio slapped a priest? That seems pretty good. Let's see him slap the priest. Like, don't tell me he slapped a priest. Like,
well, maybe that's my problem with it then, is that, Petruchio's behavior is bad, but like, if you really want that moment of like impossible behavior that we don't get to see but is described, maybe it could just have been a little, like, a step above what is there. Like he's rude and he slaps a priest and whatever, but like, I mean, I guess at the time that was mind blowing, like, oh my God, he hit the clergy.
It is pretty great to be like, come late to your wedding, and slap the priest. And then he's so grotesque that the priest drops the Bible. He reaches to pick it up and he slaps the priest.
Yeah, yeah.
Says, we're married. And also, what does he say? Oh yeah, he says like he says, will you marry her? What does he say? He's like, I by Gog's wounds. It's just it is kind of perfect where it's just like everyone's trying to be like, and do you take Kate to be your wife? Just like, I by Gog's wounds. Like it is well done. It's so strangely done to do it off stage. And then they come back again, and like I do feel for Kate, because like when they come back on, like she has less than nothing. And I think this is a wonderful passage of just utterly him driving everyone and her nuts. So Patricia says, I gotta go, and Baptiste says, wait, you're leaving tonight? And he's like, no, I'm leaving now. And so Tranio says, wait, stay up to dinner. And Patricio says, nope. Gremio says, let me entreat you. Patricio says, nope. And Kate says, let me entreat you. And he just looks at her and says, I am content. And she's like, so you'll stay? He's like, no, I just wanted you to beg. That's all I wanted. I'm still leaving. But I couldn't eat another bite, because all I wanted to do was for you to beg and have your family see you beg. No, you get nothing, but I wanted to humiliate you on your wedding day, and now I have. And so I do. It's just,
and it is humiliating, right? I mean, it's as you say, the gaslighting, the idea of gaslighting someone, or turning the tables to thinking that they are a problem, and that they're lucky that they get what they get, and this is the scene where she kind of starts getting broken in,
where she kind of starts getting broken in, and where he does this complete linguistic judo flip on Kate, who's really good at talking, where she's like, stay, well, fine, I'm gonna have a party. And he's like, you should have a party, as if like that's his that's his to give. Like, I don't want to get in the way of you having a party. And then he judo flips that into, wait, no, actually, like, he said we should be together, so I'm gonna throw you over my shoulder and walk off screen, because you're right, I love you. We don't need a wedding day, we don't need a party, let's get out of here, let's go to the swamp. And so he drags her out. I think she has no lines. Like, yeah, it just happens to her. She doesn't.
Yeah, she really doesn't say much.
It just happens to her. And Baptista, her dad, is just like, nope. He says, nay, let them go. A couple of quiet ones. It's such a, like, it's just him saying that my daughter is no better than Petruchio. It's just like, whew, yeah, they're just, it just pains me for the dad to just see what daughter dragged off and be like, those are a couple of quiet ones. Just, there's no difference between this scumbag stranger and his daughter. It's just,
Baptista for me is a pile of garbage in this. Super supportive. Like, one of the first things he says is something like, I wrote down, he says something to the effect of, oh God, somebody leaving a good woman, let alone, it says, much more a shrew of thy impatient behavior. Like, even he is like, well, everybody knows you're a bitch, so I guess we expected this. It's like he's so insufferable in how he just doesn't support his daughter. Like, he's a creep.
But I
he's
feel like
as big a creep as any man on this. In this
again, I don't know how, because and then right after that, Lucentio turns to Bianca. He's like, what do you think of this? And she's like, yeah, that she's mad, and so now she's mad they made it. And it's just like, it's almost like you have to either, so first of all, it's just unbearably sad for Kate. It's just like everyone just decided to bully her on their same day, which happens to be her wedding day, that everyone just decided to be like, you suck. I'm glad you're marrying someone abusive. But I almost feel like Bianca wasn't this nasty to her before. Baptista, while not a great dad, was not this like ruthless and ready to get rid of her before. And it makes me sad, but I don't know like how you'd put this on. If there's be something to signal, like why all of a sudden everyone's just like, you could make them all like clearly relieved that Bianca could get married right now, or something to convey like why everyone is just throwing her directly underneath the goddamn bus because it's not in character. And you'd almost have to like find, I don't know what you do, but something that just conveys like, this is a really weird town. This is a really weird family. And like,
town.
They act one way in one act and act a different way in another act, but like, it's not.
But I think it goes back then to, again, like, is it so, like, is the comedy in this scene, is the comedy derived from watching a shrewish woman getting her comeuppance by everyone turning on her at once, you know, or are we supposed to feel sympathy for Kate? Like, I honestly don't know.
So how could that? And I guess that's the challenge. Like, how could you do this where you're getting comedy or just drama out of feeling bad for Kate? Like, you could, like, if you watch a truly depressing film or play, and you're like, yeah, wow, we have a society. But like, how could you do that with this text where you actually like tip your hand to the audience that you're just like, yes, this is all fucked up. These are awful people. Because it's not going to get any better for Kate coming through here. And I don't know how there's no laughs, I guess, from Kate's side in this. There's no wins for Kate. There's no her banging a guitar over anyone's head. And creepily, there is Bianca's station in life rising. Like, Bianca's like choosing her suitors and being good at it, like just like Bianca feeling her oats and whatnot. Kate is just like getting one bit of independence after another stripped from her. And so that's why I think it would be so tough to do, because you're establishing a semi-strong character in Bianca right now, semi-strong female character, at the same time that you're stripping it from Kate. And so like, it feels like I can't see a route to give him credit for it. It just is, let's just throw rocks to the shrew. It's
yeah, and it really is. And I think that's why it's so important that the fake teaching scene happens at the beginning, because obviously Bianca is kind of like, I don't give a shit who these guys are.
Yeah.
But she sees something in Lucentio. You know, like there's a moment where, like, that whole idea, as you said, there's a moment where she's like, don't lose hope. You know, like I'm interested. I think that might be the first time Bianca has been interested in anybody. And then later on in the scene when Kate's involved, it's kind of like, now there's a new urgency where it's kind of like, yeah, you know what? Let's get rid of Kate.
Okay.
Because, you know?
Yeah. So it's clearly, it's cruel to have Bianca start to like successfully navigate this stuff just as Kate is losing it all. And the thrust of the play is that like, that it's funny whenever anything bad happens to Kate, but like, how could you, so you could show Bianca like light up for the first time once she starts getting some back and forth with Lucentio. And it's Lucentio that prompts her to kind of like say, yeah, she's madly mated. So I just can't think how you could have those two laughing about it and have it not have them look like scumbags.
Right. Yes.
Like, I can't get away from the fact that like it all has to flow out of the fact that like Kate's just awful for not being mild. Like, that's at the end of the day, she's not mild, and so what a trash heap for not being mild.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's why she's getting all this abuse, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, if Bianca, but that's the thing, is that when you read Bianca's part, she's not a pushover the way someone might assume if Kate is such a strong personality.
Yeah,
Bianca's very assertive herself, you know.
I think it's kind of like, if it's like classic sexist tropes. You are allowed to wield power and make decisions within the strict bounds of what women are allowed to care about and think about. But what you're not allowed to do is have a mouth. What you're not allowed to do is break an instrument over a teacher's head, even if he's clearly trying to be obnoxious with you.
Right. The confines of the culture, like whatever the culture is dictating.
Yeah.
She's parameters for woman.
Her husband. And so she's doing that, but she's not going to challenge the fundamental system at all. And so she's
see, now that's interesting. Would you argue that Kate is challenging the fundamental system, like the very fabric?
Yes, I think Kate's like the nail sticking up that's getting hammered down here. And so you do get a fundamental view of like, oh, she tried to be different, and so her brain is being sucked out of it, and the society's crushing her. That's the only way that you could make this work, is if you decided to show it like a tragedy. Like put aside a tragedy with like some good, with some really high quality Three Stooges in the mix, but like, but like at the end of the day, she's our main character. She's having all her agency stripped away from her. And these other people are finding happiness, but only because they refuse to challenge any of the systems around them. And so, and also like, you can't say it has to be just about women not challenging the system, because Lucentio's breaking laws all over the place. Petruchio has no respect for any aspect of polite society. Like he's just proof that just like, no, listen, I'm a dude. That's enough.
Yeah.
Stuff you guys are going to keep. And Baptista's just like, yeah, he's right. I just wanted a guy with some money. And I think that's him. So I wish he had showed up on time. I wish he had not punched the priest. I wish that he wasn't dressed like an idiot. But he is a man. So who am I to say? On the other hand, like his wife does speak up. So they deserve each other. I hope they both jump in a volcano.
You know, there's something interesting about what you said there, because it's kind of like, so like the more you talk, the more I was thinking like, so maybe is the whole thing a comment on the rigid structures that are in place at the time, and you know, still today, between the structures between man and woman, where you know each one of the characters is trying to circumvent the you know the realities of the time. Like, you know, it's like, well, we don't have A, B, and C available to us, so how about this? We're going to go this elaborate scheme where I'm going to be a teacher, you're going to be a teacher. Like it's like,
yeah,
nobody can just be a human being in this world. Like they have to somehow scam their way to get what they want.
But also there's scams everywhere, but there's no consequences for scamming for anyone except for Kate. For Kate,
right?
Kate to break rules means like everyone's just like, you're trash and you deserve whatever happens to you because you've never had respect for the basic dignity of polite society. And everyone else is just like, yeah, I fucking killed a guy and I'm going to get a hobo to act like he's my dad. And this play kicks off with the idea that we should just utterly drive a hobo nuts and put on a play for him. Like both the world and the play within a world are devoted to the idea of just running scams on people.
And as you say, like Kate, if there's anybody who's not running a scam in this whole thing, it's Kate.
Yeah,
like
her bad side is that she's honest. She's not
right.
She just,
and that's what makes this. Yeah, and that's what makes this act so interesting, because this is the act where Bianca starts buying into the scam.
Yeah, it almost like it is where Bianca like kind of sells out, where she's just like, oh, I actually always wanted a husband, and this guy seems pretty cool, so it's time to cut bait on my sister. I think that
I'll join in too. You know,
yeah, and so like I think as literature, it's great because we can talk about all this stuff. I think like making an audience feel that you were trying to do that, I think one of the biggest challenges in trying to pull that off is that like, or the reason that I think like the play is not on Kate's side is because it steadily takes away her voice. And so you'd either have to show that like, it's just, again, it's like for her to be trundled off at the end of this act without any words coming out of her mouth means that like, she's the object that we're laughing at. If she got one line, or better yet, a soliloquy about like how poorly she was being treated, then there's a way that you can say, oh, this is the story of a human being trundled off. But in fact, it's the story of a shrew who is hilariously being dragged off by her hair.
Right. Yeah, and there's a, I don't know. I guess there's always been a throughout history something funny and ultimately a bully getting his or her comeuppance, but you just don't get the impression.
She's not a bully at any point, though. She's just
that's
like,
the thing. She
just doesn't take shit.
Right. She doesn't take shit, and she stands up for herself. Is all she's guilty of. And it goes back to your other point about how do you make this? How do you navigate this scene without making everyone else seem like total creeps?
Yeah, and so I can't see. So like at this point in Act 3, I feel like the plane's pretty close to the mountain here. That like there's no the only way to show it is to just be like, oh, it turns out these are all awful people. Like there's an early script of Toy Story where the toys are all just vicious to each other, and the Pixar people or the Disney people are like, what is this? This isn't nearly what we're asking for. And what had happened is they had kept pushing them to be edgier and more 90s-ish and keep pushing it. And by the end, it was just like a bunch of insecure toys just like screaming at each other. None of them were likable at all. And that's like what this feels like at this point. It's like there's no one on screen that you can like at all, except for Kate, but Kate's just a victim at this point. And so you can't even respect
like Family Guy.
Yeah. Yes. Like that's exactly what this is right now.
Yeah, it's like if you could probably do this entire play with characters from Family Guy, because I had this discussion once with somebody about the difference between Simpsons and the Family Guy, and my point was that Family Guy doesn't have anybody to root for. It's Simpsons is all heart.
Yeah.
There's that great episode of Homer at the nuclear power plant, and he looks up and there's a wall of pictures with Maggie on them. Like that's a moment you'll never see in Family Guy.
No,
because it's all jokes in Family Guy. It's not. It's not about human connection.
But also, Family Guy fundamentally says like it's fun to trash women, so we're going to do that. Like you could cast this with the actual characters.
Pretty constantly.
You could have Meg in the character of Kate, and that's how jokes usually work on Family Guy, where it's just like, do you see how we abused her?
Yeah,
because she's ugly.
Right.
That's the joke.
And you could actually hear Peter calling that out as Baptista.
No, totally.
It's because she's ugly. You can hear him say it.
No, you're absolutely just like, wow, that goes two quiet ones. It's just like
it fits too well.
No, I think that would be the best way to. I swear to God, if you just animated it and if you got Quagmire to be Petruchio, like,
oh my God, that's perfect.
The whole thing scales.
That is perfect.
That's what means it's probably irredeemable, or
at least its intentions were never any higher than we've assumed on this podcast. Yeah, right.
So, but I think like that's a way that you could do it, where you could say like, this is pretty sad and dark, but it does have some people being slapped around like that. Okay, that's fun. I like people slapping each other. I like people dressing up in stupid costumes.
I was just watching Three Stooges bits this morning. Like I love that stuff.
That's okay. Nope, sold. That's not going to get better than that. That's how you should put on Act 3.
Yeah, it's like for what this play is, and again, I think that maybe we stumbled upon, as you say, like the because it fits so well into Family Guy, then it probably wasn't reaching for anything beyond any social commentary, but beyond what we see.
Like maybe there's something we can pull out of Acts 4 and 5, but like Act 3 on its own, no, it's irredeemable. Like that's the only way to do it. It's just to God, you wouldn't have to change a single thing. Act 3, Scene 2, perfect. Like the part where you actually have an interesting female character, you couldn't do as Family Guy. But that'd be a great way to just like switch scenes, just be like, and this is misogynistic cartoon that you all know.
Right.
Like I wonder if the screen just came down and it went through that, and you were just like, oh, I feel bad about Shakespeare now.
I had my reservations about Shakespeare, but For as much as I struggle with this particular play in terms of what it's trying to say, there's some really great lines in here, like Lucentio calls is it Gremio in the beginning? No, it's not Gremio.
Gremio is the old guy. Yeah.
It must be Hortensio, because he calls him a preposterous ass that never read so far to know the cause. And I thought to myself, that's every high school student I've ever met. They've never read so far. They read a few lines and like, yeah, I got it. It's like, you don't got it. you don't got it.
There's a lot to get. I don't think you got it. Yeah, I fucking got it.
Yeah, I read enough. No, you didn't. You didn't read far enough to get that part. Oh, and also I think again with the teachery stuff, Bianca totally gets distance learning, because she says, I can learn my lesson as I please myself. It's very kind of like I learn when I want to learn, and it's like she gets it.
Maybe it's just that there's a hovering meanness to this act, but I even felt bad for Gremio, where she's just like, why don't you go tune your instrument, okay, and we'll be ready when you're back. He comes back and she's like, no, it's not ready. Go back again. He comes back. She's like, yeah, I think we're done. So he's
such a desperate guy in that, though.
Oh yeah, he is. And
like,
and
so throwing everything out.
He could just be a desperate guy, but for some reason, everyone throughout the play is like, yeah, and he's old. He's old. Like there's no characterization to it whatsoever. It's just like,
yeah. And what I love about that, though, and this, I actually wrote this down because I think it's one of the few times. Oh, not one of the few times, because Shakespeare uses full characters all the time. But it's one of those great nods to the history of theater, specifically Commedia dell'arte, because they call Gremio Pantaloon at one point. And Pantalone, the Commedia dell'arte character, it's the same. It just means pants. And I think that's that great stock character of a rich guy who's just called Pants, a rich old man, called Pants. It like goes back hundreds and hundreds of years before this, and it's like that one moment where Shakespeare is like nodding his, like tipping his cap to everything that's led up to this point, and then it makes sense that Gremio is just old. He's an old rich guy, because he is a stock character, and like the fact that Shakespeare has one of the characters call him Pantaloon is beautiful. It's like a thing of beauty, like it's just such a great acknowledgement of the kind of, we all know what this is, like we all know that we're in theater right now, and like, this character,
he's Pants.
Yeah, old Pants. And the funny thing is that actually something about calling somebody Mr. Pants is so funny to me. And
you don't have to explain the joke, it just is.
And it happened. It's like, and I was thinking like, is there a modern, has it happened before? And there's a throwaway line in a Mr. Show sketch where it's one of my favorite sketches of all time. It's the lie detector sketch, and it's this guy taking a lie detector. Like it looks like the whole setup. It looks like he's being interrogated. A bunch of guys around, and he's Bob Odenkirk is hooked up to this machine, and the things that he's asked to respond to get increasingly more crazy, obviously, and he keeps answering in the affirmative, and the machine doesn't go off, and that's the joke. That's the game of the scene. But at one point, Paul F. Tompkins has a moment where he says, have you ever kissed so and so? No, I'm sorry. That's somebody else's line. Paul F. Tompkins says something to the effect of, like he takes the nodes and puts them on his own head. He says, I was molested when I was very young, and that's why I'm such a control freak. And the machine doesn't go off, and Paul F. Tompkins then realizes this is a huge breakthrough. As he's like, oh my God. But then David Cross puts the things back on Bob Odenkirk, and he says, okay, like he's like, okay, it's my turn to ask questions. Okay, Mr. Pants. and he says it there, and for some reason I was like, like that's why I think it's so funny. Like there's like this kind of through line through history of somebody calling somebody Mr. Pants, like this guy who's got big pants, you know.
Anytime that you make a joke out of something that's unobjectionable, I find it hilarious. Like if you bumped into someone at the grocery store, and like you were getting tough with him, and he was wearing pants, you're like, "Hey, Mr. Pants, what the hell?" It's just like
you with the pants.
It's just like, wait, are you saying it's wrong to wear pants? Are you mocking the fact? But just by taking anything and saying, "I'll make this an insult," it's like, "Hey, Two Eyes, hey, you, Mr. Pants." Just like the other person doesn't know how to respond. It's just like, all right, Mr. Pants,
you with the shoes. Yeah, that's right. I have shoes on.
What? How did I don't know. What?
I don't think I understand what your point is. Oh, there's also quite a few tantalizing lines in here that if I were directing it, I would have probably jumped on in a uncomfortable way. Spit on the hole.
Oh yeah, that
was one of the ones that.
So it'd be interesting to do that because, again, here you have to decide. Like I've said in the past, that Bianca's too smart here. But I've said in the past, you could just like cast her with an inanimate creature or something. And so he talks about the fingering. They talk about spit in the hole.
Yeah.
But it doesn't land in the text. It could land in the performance depending on how you go with it. But
yeah. I mean, considering how bawdy a Shakespeare could be every once in a while, and because this is so early, I don't see how it could not have been played like that. Like, you know, we're talking about fingering your instrument, everybody. Wink, wink,
I know it totally is. I just don't know how Bianca responds to it on stage. Like, is she oblivious? Is she into it because she likes Lucentio? Like, so does Lucentio say both of those, or no? That's the thing, is Gremio tries to start again with like, here's the fingering, and my gut is that it doesn't land, and then then Lucentio goes to spit in the hole. But I don't understand exactly what that means. Like, I mean, I know what it means, but like, is Lucentio insulting him? Like, the joke is supposed to be like, say something gross to the woman, but instead it's like, I don't know. I don't know exactly. I know Lucentio is insulting Gremio somehow there, but I don't know exactly what it is.
If I were directing it, I would use it as a taunt. Lucentio taunting Horatio because he's closer to Bianca at the time.
So he's sitting next to her and he's just looking at her like, he says, like, "Go spit in the hole."
Yeah, I would look at Hortensio and say, you know, we'll spit in the hole, and then maybe turn back to Bianca, because it's such a like, I'm right next to her, man.
Yeah,
you know, like I think that
actually I think it probably lands pretty well as a masturbation joke, because you spit in the hole to lubricate your instrument, and so it's like, why don't you go spit in the hole?
I like that a lot. That would be perfect.
Yeah, so
I like that quite a bit.
And again, that would work on Family Guy.
Well, you know, it's funny. Like, the more we talk about it, the more I think that this scene is a really good example of the kind of, again, like, theater is not new. Like, the stories have, you know, the stories and characters have been recycled for centuries. So like the more we talk about it, this scene in particular, this act, the more I think about the Marx Brothers and how this is a good example of the same kind of structure the Marx Brothers movies have, where it's like, you've got the real couple that we're supposed to follow, like the actual couple, and then we've got the jokey couple, which is like Groucho and Dumont, you know, Margaret Dumont or whatever her name was. That's the jokey couple, you know, and this play is no different. You've got Bianca and Lucentio, I think those are the lovey couple, and, you know, Petruchio and Kate are our jokey couple. That is kind of a comment on relationships in general, you know.
Yeah.
In that way, it's like, it's actually kind of, it surprises me at how deeply ingrained. Well, you know, it doesn't surprise me because, like, it's an early play, you know.
But like, it's supposed to be really fun to be the young guy with the hot Bianca telling the old rich guy to go spit in the hole,
right?
Which again just makes it really difficult to think that this is anything other than a chauvinistic fantasy. Like, yeah, look at Ferris Bueller telling Ed Rooney to go spit in a hole.
Yeah. Well, that's again
the timely reference on my part. The kids are gonna get that.
Hey, I was doing Marx Brothers. I'm referencing the Marx Brothers over here. You're kicking yourself for Ferris Bueller. Let me talk more about. Commedia dell'arte. I'm sure that everybody's going to be loving that.
All right, this is. Thank you, man. I came in really down about this thing, and like both
You
like
did.
being a little bit happier about Bianca's character, and also like, just frankly, the Family Guy insight like makes me happy, just because like the meta message there is just like, yeah, this is trash animation, and these are trash people, and
well, this is what entertains people. Like this is the lower common denominator comedy, right? It's like it's base stuff, you know.
So thank you, man. You've made me feel better about the universe and Bill Shakespeare.
Old Billy Shakes. But again, it's interesting if this is, you know, being an early play, it's interesting to me that this is where you start. You start with what is popular because it's what you know. I'm sure Shakespeare went to a bunch of plays and like he was looking around, you know, seeing what was working, what people responded to. And this is no different. Like, you know, it's not time to be necessarily clever yet. You know,
no, you got to sell some tickets your first play. Like,
yeah, absolutely. And get people in the seats. And, you know, he kind of has his finger on the pulse. It's like, you know, what's funny? Relationships, you know, and to have this kind of, the only thing, like, yeah, obviously it's problematic, but the one thing that is still sticking in my craw is, again, no Sly scene in this particular act, just like the last one. It's like it's like, what the fuck was all that about in the beginning if you're not going to use it on a consistent basis?
So I have to assume it's just like pages missing, but if I think about like what you do with it, I think it could give you the ability to do a Family Guy scene or something where you're just like, Christopher Sly is just going to keep watching this in weird ways and whatnot. And so like, if you wanted to mess with the format or do something creative, like that would allow you to do it. You could figure out.
Just turns around into the foreground every once in a while, like turns around from the play, going, ugh.
Yeah, exactly. Or like since I think the only way to like pull this off is to like fundamentally like send some signals with how you produce it. Like just having Christopher Sly as someone who walks in or out of frame could give you a way to like reframe it and just be like, we're going to do this scene completely differently. We're going to do the scene with puppets. We're going to do the scene with Peter Griffin. We're going to do the scene with whatever. And maybe by having him there at the front, it gives you that flexibility. As literature, does it make any sense? No, except to have one more character be abused and confused. But we've got enough of those. You don't need one more character who doesn't have a story arc to say like, oh, this is a play about driving people insane, rich people driving people insane and being cruel to them. Like, we got that.
I like the idea. I like the idea of missing pages, as if he wrote the whole thing and then edited a lot, and then somebody came up and said, "Hey, did you take out all that stuff in the beginning with the?" Oh shit!
Yeah, it's your first play. I got bored with that whole Christopher Sly guy, so I tossed it in the fire.
Yeah, so you know, we'll just we'll tell the guy who plays Sly to do whatever. For 2 hours. We'll introduce him
on stage with a couple beers. He'll be hilarious.
Yeah, actually, I was just watching Hamilton streaming last night, and there's a scene I forgot about where King George hangs out after his last song and kind of just watches the proceedings. And that actually reminded me a lot of Sly, this idea of somebody just sitting there making face, like mugging the whole time.
So what if Christopher Sly was just like desolate at the end of Act 3 and they just treated that poor girl like trash. Everyone in universe is like, oh, glad she's gone. And he's just like,
yeah,
I don't like this fantasy. Can
I
go home now? Like
that would be really interesting if that he's your window into
what the director is trying to say. Like,
yeah, what's the commentary here? Yeah, that would be really neat. If you were doing it today, if you were going to produce it,
the fantasy that he's a rich person, and so he could also just be like, this is what rich people are. I'd rather go back to the gutter. Like, again, he has no lines, but you could just find some way to just
Yeah, I was having a good time getting drunk and yelling at the barmaid.
Yeah.
Or maybe the whole thing is a morality play aimed at him. And at the end, he has a scene with his wife, and he's like, "I'm sorry." Yeah. And he beats her to death.
It's just like, see.
Beat her to death, indeed. Fat and Greasy Citizens, presented by the players Chuck and Gabe, on next week's episode, Taming of the Shrew, Act 4. Theme song, A Robust Crew, by Darren Curtis.